Dublin is a capital city of around 1.4 million people in the metropolitan area, a global hub for tech, finance, and services. At first glance, it looks structured, ordered, and designed. But here is the twist: it's only partially planned. The rest, let's call it urban improvisation. This is the fifth episode under Module 5 of the Course 2 within the title Case Studies on European Urban Planning. The title of this module is Planned Order versus Organic Growth, Grid versus Chaos, Control versus Evolution. Follow the course to know more about planned and unplanned European cities.
I'm Hushman Masumi. It's Urban History.
In the 18th century, Dublin experienced one of its most important planning phases. At that time, the population was about 250,000 people. Expansion focused on the South and North Georgian districts, and development of Merrion Square, Fitzwilliam Square, and Mountjoy Square. The characteristics were buildings were about 3 to 4 stories and rarely more. Street width were typically 12 to 20 meters, and highly regular plots and aligned facades. This was controlled, top-down urban planning, and it worked for a city one-fifth of its current size. After this period, Dublin never implemented a large-scale master plan. Compare that to Paris, with massive restructuring, creation of wide boulevards of 20 to 30 meters, and dense block system of about 20,000 people per square kilometer. Barcelona, with a grid system of 113 by 113 meter blocks, planned expansion over 7,500 hectares and a density of about 16,000 people per square kilometer. Dublin had no citywide restructuring, no unified expansion grid, and growth driven incrementally. In short, everyone else had a plan. Dublin had vibes. Dublin's population increased significantly, about 250,000 in 1800s, 550,000 in 1950s, and 1.4 million today in the metropolitan area. That's a 5 to 6 times increase over 2 centuries. But here is the issue: urban form did not scale accordingly. Limited increase in building heights, continued dominance of low-rise of 2 to 4 floors, and expansion mostly horizontal, not vertical. Between 1950 and 2000, Dublin expanded rapidly outward. Key characteristics were large-scale housing developments, dominance of semi-detached homes of about 60 to 70% in many areas, and typical densities of about 1,000 to 2,000 people per square kilometer. Spatial impact was like urban expansion up to 20 to 40 kilometers from the center and significant land consumption per capita. Compare Dublin to compact cities. Barcelona had about 16,000 per square kilometer, and Paris had 20,000 per square kilometer. Dublin suburbs had often less than 2,000 per square kilometer. That's not expansion, that's urban stretching. Today, Dublin consists of multiple overlapping systems. The first is Georgian core, which is related to 18th century, structured, planned, and compact. Inner city mixed zones of 19th and early 20th century, irregular layouts and fragmented plots. The third is post-war suburbs of 1950 to 1980, low density and car-oriented. And finally, docklands of 1990s to today, modern, high-value development with buildings up to 70 to 80 meters, which is rare for Dublin. Each layer follows a different logic. Result: no single urban system. Dublin sits between two models. First, planned cities, predictable growth, efficient infrastructure, and coordinated density. The second, organic systems, flexible development, adaptation over time, and irregular but resilient. Dublin is a hybrid: planned core, unplanned expansion, and fragmented modern additions. It didn't choose a model, it collected them. This hybrid structure creates measurable challenges: housing shortages, tens of thousands of units needed. Rent increases more than 100% since 2012. Long commuting distances, 20 to 40 kilometers, is common, and uneven density distribution. The planning challenges are difficult densification, complex land use coordination, and infrastructure retrofitting instead of planning ahead. Despite all this, Dublin functions. GDP per capita among the highest in Europe. Major global companies' headquarters here, and continuous population growth of about 1 to 1.5% annually. Cities are resilient. They adapt even without perfect structure. Dublin works but not efficiently. High demand, limited supply, strong economy, weak spatial structure, and growth without coordination. This leads to long-term inefficiencies, not immediate collapse. Think of it as a system that works, but with unnecessary effort. But why didn't Dublin plan more? There are several structural reasons. No dominant long-term planning authority historically, strong influence of private developers, political resistance to large-scale interventions, and preference for incremental change. Instead of a master plan, Dublin evolved through decisions made step by step, not as a system. Dublin shows us that planning is not a one-time event, it's a continuous process. Stopping halfway creates fragmentation, inefficiency, and delayed problems. Dublin is not chaotic. It's partially planned and partially unfinished. A city where order exists in fragments, growth happens without full coordination, and structure appears locally but not globally. So think about your own city. Is it growing with a long-term vision or just expanding step by step? And what happens when today's decisions shape the next 100 years?